pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is correspondence, visitors, and public comments. Alright, seeing how we have none, we'll go down to number 4, the agenda review.
I would just ask Jen if the principals are online, if we want to do administrative reports first before the presentation, so that if we have any questions, then they log off after that. They're welcome to stay, but I really should have switched that.
Alright, so we'll do number 7 right now, administrative reports, Franklin, Swan, Highgate, MVU, and District. And we'll start with Dan.
Are we skipping public comments?
There was none.
We're skipping public comments and put that after.
There was no public comments.
I have a public comment from the public. I didn't hear you ask.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I know, I didn't hear anybody say it, but maybe I wasn't listening very well.
So I made sure that nobody over there had it, didn't have any, that we
All
didn't
right,
have any online.
I was hoping that the person would either show up or would be on the screen, but I don't see it yet. I thought someone stopped by my shop today and said, boy, you people have a lot of committees. Apparently they saw it at the last meeting. And the question that came to me was, how does a member of the, as this person said, how does a member of the general public find out about when committees meet, what the agenda is?
We post them on the website, the same
Okay,
place
so
as
you
board
just go to the
agendas.
website?
Yep.
Okay. I thought that, but I felt I did better not speak until the mother looked up there.
Again, my apologies on that, Dawn, we didn't speak loud enough. Alright, so now we're gonna go to the administrative reports. And do we follow in this line, Julie, here, or just?
Well, we hadn't discussed changes. We had
Okay.
just been accepting the reports, and if there were any questions, the principals are here if anybody has any questions.
Alright, did anybody get a chance to read the administrative reports in the drive?
Oh, I have a bunch of questions for administrative reports.
I have a couple too.
I'm in no rush, but before we leave it, I do have some questions.
Is there any questions for the principals on their principal reports?
Yes.
Okay.
Is Dan there?
Yep.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm here, Don.
Yes, I really liked your report. I mean, I liked all of them. I thought they were good. But when I was looking through the calendar events, a question, and the question is because maybe we aren't doing it, but under May events, the MVU band used to march in the parade in Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton. Are they doing that this year?
On April 30th, they are doing the Maple Festival Parade. I know that they have been practicing it. They've gone around the building practicing it. So they do have plans on being involved, yes.
But didn't you put a May calendar out too?
Question is about Memorial Day.
The May calendar, Dan.
Yep. I did put some May events on there. I did not, looking at May 29th, which is Memorial Day. I can find that out for you. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that they are involved in that.
As I went through, because I know they've been holding the last 2 or 3 years in Swanton, so we have a real parade. But I thought, when I saw that, I thought maybe they don't do it anymore. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I can speak on that too if you'd like now. I'm on the Memorial Day Committee for Highgate, and we're having a meeting the 30th of April to discuss it, and the intent is to invite MVU band for Highgate.
I think it's great to see the students out there. I know they have to go up a day or part of a day, but.
I know in the past, Aaron Garceau has gone from one town right to the next and get the kids on the bus and go on to the next one. So I'm pretty sure that they are planning it, but I can find out for you exactly.
Any other questions for the principals or comments?
comments on their reports?
No, for principals, no.
And I did have one thing. It's kind of like an open question to the board is, so I like the reports, they're great. They always give like really good information. The only thing I wanted to ask was, has there any been like stipulation on what was passed in the reports and in point before? Sort of like what we're looking for or?
The principals were told by the board in the past the kinds of things they were looking for, which are events that have happened or are coming up that month, and make sure that upcoming events, and so the board knows what those are as well. So, yes, the principals are doing what the board asked them to do.
Is there anything that like you potentially like to see in the reports that we're not getting or talk about, or the board can talk about something?
I think we could like put that on an agenda. If anybody has any suggestions on our upcoming agenda.
Yeah, just open it up for discussion of what, I mean, the reports were great. The administrative report, you know, we'll talk about after, because I do have some questions for that one. But no, it was pretty good.
Alright, on to the administrative reports. Opening that up for questions and or comments. I know I do have one, and Dawn and Veronica have some. So after I read your report, Julie, I guess I was a bit shocked with like how the testing is gonna work out and the lack of support that we're, or not we're, but the schools are getting are. I was very shocked and upset about that.
Well, that's really what I wanted to communicate about it. The principals and the teachers have been, to say stressed out is an understatement. I mean, I've seen some news reports where Dan French, I saw on Friday, and said, good luck in your future endeavors to him, and we meant that sincerely. And he keeps saying, well, the SBAC assessment had a late rollout, and that was a little bit bumpy. Nothing can compare to this. We weren't told that it was happening until October. The people in charge of it have changed jobs, left their jobs, new people have come in. We've got a testing company working through the technical aspects, and people in the agency of ed who really don't understand the nature of the testing in the field. And even this week, if you ask Yashua a question, he might not be able to contain himself. Okay, right? Like, it's even just last week they were telling us things like, well, the computer adaptive part is only within grade level, and oh, the text to speech won't work, and you can use human readers, but you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement that threatens to take your license away, but we haven't given you the guidelines to follow, but you're signing your life away on the guidelines. Just things about how the test even works, we haven't really been able to work through yet. It starts tomorrow. Yeshua's starting first. Honestly, everyone, I don't mean to say that the state is working in bad faith. It's just to say it's not a smooth rollout. And I mean, what I got from Dan French was, we acknowledge that the rollout has not been ideal. And that's to say the least. What I'm telling teachers, I think we may see something from the educational agency, the Vermont Superintendent's Association, etc., in the next little bit of time. We're trying to work collaboratively with other agencies to say, look, nobody's finger pointing, and we don't know how valid this is going to be. We're going to do our best, and we also are going to try and make it as smooth as we can for kids, because that's the most important thing. If I have a student who's really struggling and they are shutting down and they're having, I'm not gonna, I haven't had time to prep that child, I haven't been able to go through practice things with them. We're still not sure what the accommodations for kids with needs really look like. My hope is it's gonna be a better test. I think it may very well be. But I just want the community to know that we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that it's smooth for children, that they don't feel bad. But this is a pilot. they're not allowed to call it a pilot because we have a plan with the federal government, with the Elementary and Secondary Schools Act, that doesn't allow for them to call it a pilot, because that would say it wouldn't count. But for all intents and purposes, it's a pilot. And that's really what I wanted to communicate to the board. And the principals and the coaches and the interventionists and curriculum director, they have been working incredibly hard to learn what they need to do. Derek has been working on the technical aspects of it with everyone. The rules change from week to week. We're doing the best we can. And I want to assure everyone we're doing the best we can.
You know, the sad part about it is, we never seem to stay with a test long enough so that we can really do fair comparisons of our students' growth or lack thereof. You know, SBAC was supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, and it didn't happen. And now they're going. But as I read that like you did, I thought, you know, this is really not so much about the test, it's about the process
Yes.
to administer the test. And if that's failing, can you imagine what's, it's really sad.
It's because we focus so much on accountability, and it's so important to us, and I believe in it. And yet, it's been very challenging to do this. But luckily, we have really good local assessment information, and we'll see what our local assessment looks like compared with the results here. It can only get better, right? So, but I'm also very cognizant of the fact you don't want to say, oh, the test is complicated, oh, don't, you know, we don't want to sound like we're making excuses. That's not what this is. I wouldn't have, I think you know me well enough, I wouldn't be putting this kind of statement out if it wasn't. I think it's pretty significant. And it gets to, not that there aren't good people who are doing the best they know how to do at the agency, their capacity, it's not about how many positions they have, it's about how experienced they are and what kind of content knowledge they have. Do they understand the field? Have they ever been a teacher? Sometimes the people in charge are not from education, they're project managers from some other department. So it's been a challenge. I met the new secretary, the interim secretary of education. They may be putting out a statement. They will not be calling it a pilot, as I explained why they can't do that. But my hope is that they will be putting out a statement that really is sharing how challenging this has been. Because I think schools are owed that.
And I think the only thing, if you don't mind me adding, is that I feel the most disheartened is that our children are unprepared to take this assessment. With SBAC, we have interims we could give that gave us data before we did it. We could have different sample items that kids could do on their own. We could do that as a whole class. We don't even know what the interface will truly look like for kids. So when they log on, we don't really know what they're gonna see. And we have no idea for those students who got designated supports or accommodations, what that experience will be like. So on day one of our testing, we will have to help students understand what that's like. And that's hard for me because I want our students to be fully prepared. So that way the only thing they have to deal with is test anxiety, right? And that's strong enough for students. So I'm fortunate that we start tomorrow and we can at least we say guinea pigs, although I don't necessarily love that term, but we at least can try it and we can at least say these are the things we learned from it. So when the rest of the schools go and take it, hopefully we can help support them. But yeah, just really for me, it feels like our students are going to be very unprepared. But I would say our staff has been phenomenal. I think the minute we get information, we're putting it out there. Even last Thursday, we got a change that was fairly significant, and we had to rework part of our schedule. And I think staff have been wonderful to make sure we are trying to have the best experience for kids. And I do applaud Julie because she's tried to get lots of feedback from us about specific things that have happened to use that to help really the AOE see this is a little bit bigger maybe than, not a great rollout. It's a little bit more like, this is actually really not great, and so I think that's helpful that the superintendents are able to say, this is what we've noticed, in hopes that the AOE, as Julie said, will respond to let us know that this was a little bit bigger of an issue than I think they understand.
In your next administrative report, would you be able to let us know how the kids did? I just like very concerned with.
Absolutely.
What are the grades that are taken in the test?
3rd through 9th.
Third through ninth?
And Kosha, is it 11th grade for science as well? 5th and 11th, big science?
Yes, 5th, 8th, and 11th grade for science.
Is it not available to the 10th and 11th graders, or is that what Coach was saying last time where we're working on making that available to them?
That's a different assessment. That's our local assessment.
So this new one is
This
not-
is the state-wide, it used to be the SBAC, the state results that we all have to do in grades 3 through 9 and 5, 8, and 11 for science that are reported to the federal U.S. Department of Education.
Seems like a lot of problems for something that's state run.
And again, we expect a certain amount with
Yep.
it, when there's a change. This has been particularly fraught.
And so is it just the 2 you were saying they have? The students are gonna have just this week, you're starting in Highgate?
Yeah, for us in particular, it's 5th grade science that we are doing this week. We're not doing math and ELA until after the break.
Kosha, can you let me know what, the window is shorter with this assessment? And it's starting in the middle of the week, which is weird, we're not sure why. And then it's only through, what, end of May?
Yeah, May 26th is the ending date.
So we have between now and May 26th to test all of our students in English language arts, math, and science, in those grades that we discussed.
And it's sort of, I'm just asking, it's sort of like one of those things where like they log in and then they do it, is it available or?
It is, it's on a computer, it's very, the test security is very strict, as you can imagine, so there's special proctor codes and cards, and you can't just log in a non-secure way. Kids have to be in special groups. You can't just have all the kids in the library taking the test at the same time, because different kids need different smaller spaces. You need a lot of proctors. They all have to be trained. So it's a very big piece for the school to put on. There's a lot to it. There really is. And the teachers have been amazing trying to figure all this out as the manuals literally change and then have wrong information that conflicts with the, yeah. So they've been definitely building the plane while flying. They absolutely have.
And did they give an indication of how long before like we get the results, and then will other schools share it, and will it become like statewide information available, or?
When they unembargo it. So we get the results pretty quickly, teachers are able to see their results fairly quickly. I don't know that time, probably Kosha does, although we don't really know anything because it's a new assessment.
Yeah.
But we'll get it fairly quickly, and individual student results that can go home, I think it would probably be similar like SBAC. But in terms of our ability to share it out publicly, the state tells us when we're allowed to do that. So for example, the SBAC results that we took last spring, they still have not unembargoed for us to share publicly. We're not entirely sure why. I think they're having technical issues on their end with their, and at this, I couldn't possibly speculate. But yes, that's part of this whole accountability system statewide and to the federal government. So all of those things should be happening.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Is there anything that we should be doing or thinking about, knowing that it's a new test to begin with, the rollout has been not good? Thinking about the kids' perspective, as Yeshua mentioned, just anxiety in general around testing is high, adding the fact that it's new and they don't know what to expect. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume maybe performance is not going to be the best because of those circumstances. Is there anything that we can do to help mitigate or prepare responses to the parents who are going to get these results and be like, what is this? Possibly.
Yeah, I would expect that, you know, most of the time, those results are shared with parents at a parent-teacher conference or something like that. So if I'm meeting with a parent and the state results look really similar to their students' other performance measures, I would share that. If it looks very different, I would talk about what I think is, whether the emphasis should be on that measure or not.
Okay.
Right, so that's, luckily, we don't, it's just a snapshot in time. It's really developed so that the school systems and the state can report to the federal government, and it's about that. It's not really the best measure we have of individual child's performance. We have other things to do about that. But if I were a mom of a child who was going to have this test tomorrow, I would make sure they had a good breakfast, that they got sleep, and I'd say, do your best, and I love you no matter how well you do. Because that's, you know, then kids will be in the right frame of mind.
Thank you. Don?
For early education, when I read the report, which I always love to read about early education, I noticed numbers like 73 or 74. Now, is that the total, or is that in addition to what we have now, minus the ones that are going to kindergarten?
So yes, that is new applications. So that does not include returning students or students going off into kindergarten. Those are the new totals. Looking at them in comparison to this time of receiving new applications over the last 3 years, it has gone down a little bit each year. We're within a 12 to 15 student across the district application window. We do always get more applications after this initial window of applications. And that does vary from year to year, how many come in between now and the first day of preschool. But that first window of application time allows us to see just how many families and caregivers are interested in preschool for next year. Do we have the classrooms and sessions to accommodate the ones who are interested? And it allows us to decide, at this point, would we need a wait list for anyone? Do we need to make an adjustment like we did in Highgate last year with opening one session for 3-year-olds? So we have that information now. We do expect some more applications will come in between now and when preschool opens, and we'll keep you posted about that in the upcoming reports.
So how many of these are not served by our schools directly, but are served on a contract basis?
None of these are applicants just for our school-based pre-K programs. These are not applications for the Act 166.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Jen, my second one is, Laura, thank you for doing the nice acknowledgement of Becky Hart's service for many years. Thought that was very well done and timely. But when I read that, I thought of an agenda item that I would like to see considered for August, that maybe you and Julie go through. This is our business department, and introduce us at least some way to the folks. I don't think they have to be here, but I know that there has to be some reorg happening, so not now, we have enough going on, but it'd be nice to begin the school year to know who's still doing payroll, who's doing accounts payable, who's picking up slack, and so, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Don. Anybody else? Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is gonna be the agenda review.
We did that.
I did that, we changed it around. So, approval of the minutes for March 21st and March 28th, and do I have a motion to accept the March 21st minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Renick. Any second?
Yeah, well.
Thank you, Toby. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries 7-0. And do I have a motion to approve March 28th minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Remick. Second?
I can second it again.
Thank you, Toby. All those in favor? Please say aye.
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 I'll abstain since I missed the first half of it.
Motion carries 6-1-0.
601.
601. Thank you. And now we'll have the presentations, natural science presentation with Kurt Volante and Michelle Patno.
So wonderful. So we're gonna have a science presentation for you. So last time you were at Highgate, we talked about what does intervention look like, and really dove into that a little bit. And so now we want to kind of on the flip side, what does enrichment look like here at Highgate? And we have a few people that I'm really excited that will be joining us for the presentation, which they will eventually introduce themselves. But we also have a parent in the back. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming. They'll also talk about her experience with this. But I'm going to pretty much turn it over to Kurt. You're going to learn that he does this in a very experiential way, which is why you're getting some packets. And then, as I said, we'll let Kurt take it.
Don't open the envelopes yet. He's always that.
Gotta wait for directions.
It's always that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Is here all right? We're all right?
And this Red Bull's going to presentation that for you.
Yeah, perfect. I think you can start without the presentation.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'm just, where do I, is there an X on the floor somewhere? The trap door?
Just, yeah.
So I just wanted to, I do a lot of hands-on experiential science and nature teaching. And this envelope, which we can now open, if you notice on the front, not every classroom has 4 walls. The Swanton Nature Center has actually that engraved in a wood. Now if you open it up, lay it down, and the first thing you should be able to pull out is, well, you can pull the whole thing out and lay it out on your desk. And you should have a pine cone and a ball and a whole bunch of paperwork. So the first paper and the only thing that I would ask back is there is a plastic laminated sheet. Everything else you can keep. So the first thing is, if you take out your pine cone and look at it from the back to the front, or the top, from the bottom to the top, you'll see that there are spirals on it. And those spirals are actually Fibonacci's series, which is 0, 1, 1, 2, 5, 8, and so on. There's a sheet there that explains it all if you want to read more in depth in it. But that spiral is in a pineapple, is in an artichoke, in the way leaves go up a tree, in a vine. And this is something that you can find out in nature, and it's universal. The second thing is, if you take the gall, this is I'm sure you've all walked through fields and seen these, and these are goldenrod gall flies. And a fly will lay eggs, 100 eggs, on 100 different plants, and the egg is encased in this gall. As it grows, as the plant matures, it encases that egg, forms a grub. The grub's inside all winter, and then emerges in May. And the grub, the fly has no teeth, so in the grub stage, it actually digs a little tunnel to the edge of the skin, and then when it's ready to emerge, to hatch, it goes up and it tenses and blows the top of its head up and blows that skin off and emerges in May. So this is a great thing to, I'm sure you've seen it all. Now some of you might actually know what it is, and if you're ever hungry, it's great protein. All right, and then the last thing is, if you would take your laminated sheet and just take a look at it. I always tell the teachers and the children, the students, that you may be able to read notes or letters and words, but if you look at this picture, you should be able to read nature. And so if you look at that, you can tell there's a story there. Does anybody want to take a shot at telling what the story is? Yes, you like a bird.
I know the answer, so I shouldn't, I think I should.
So anybody go ahead.
I think it was a mouse and a hawk came down and grabbed the mouse.
Oh, nice, yes. So some kids say, oh, it's a bear paw. Maybe, maybe not. But you can even take it in greater depth. You're very close. And there's the sheet there too with the tracking. It's a bounder. So there are 4 different ways of gait. There's a walker, a hopper, a waddler, and a bounder. And a bounder is like a mink and a otter, etc., right? And so this was a least weasel, and it came, and the bird that took it was actually an owl. And the reason I know that is because if an owl is the only bird that flies silently, and if it were a hawk or an eagle or something, then that animal would have been running around. Because it was going in a straight line, it didn't hear it. And then it pounced, and that wing mark is actually after it pounced, it pushed off and flew off for dinner. So when I do this with students and they look at this and they can see the story and then we go out tracking, it's amazing how enthralled and engaged they become. Thank you.
The next slide just tells us who Kurt is. So Mr. K is the founder and president of Exordium, the nature and outdoor education organization providing outdoor learning. So why is hands-on learning important, this outdoor education? So again, students are engaged. When they're learning hands-on, they can interact with the materials in a way that's more meaningful to them. It allows them flexibility in the way that they're learning and what they're learning. So if you can imagine, I'm up here teaching you about animals and, eating. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the information and you're learning what I want you to learn. But if you're experimenting, if you're hands-on, you're asking the questions, you get to drive your learning. It provides natural practice and development of transferable skills. So when we're all interacting with each other, we're learning communication skills and practical problem solving. We're learning self-direction because we're directing our own learning. And it also allows students to work on their social skills as they're partnering with others in their learning. They're asking meaningful questions and they're exploring and wondering. There is a nature deficit disorder that some psychologists are looking into. Being out in nature more can help promote health and wellness. It helps students build resilience to stress and depression. And when students are engaged, their proficiency is increased, right? Because there's less behaviors when students are engaged in interacting with their learning. And that allows that student access to their learning, but it also allows the students around them to access their learning when they're not being disrupted by all of the behaviors. I think we'll play right off. So, these are my little cherubs. Yep, go ahead and play it. Yeah, I'm gonna play and talk at the same time. So I've gotten to work with Mr. K a lot this year. One of the things I really love about working with Kurt is that we sat down at the beginning of the year and we pulled out all of my science standards, right? In first grade, we need to learn about the patterns of the sun, the moon, and the stars. We're learning about how organisms grow and develop. And so what that is like animals look like their families, right? They have characteristics of their parents, even though they might not be like exact replicas, especially when they're babies. How they survive in their habitat. So as you can see in some of these pictures, the kids are exploring.
skulls. So they're looking at them, they're asking questions about them, they're seeing what these animals need to survive, they're looking at the teeth, how their skulls are set up. We are outdoors learning animal tracks because again, how are these animals surviving? Part of that is how they survive in their climate here. So how do the animals specific to Vermont, what do they need from Vermont to survive in this habitat? They're building, they built skulls with all of the things that they would need to survive in this habitat, and then they presented them to the class. Another one of our science units in first grade is about sound and light. So they need to learn that sound makes matter vibrate, and so different types of matter make different sounds, different vibrations. So they're exploring, they're touching, they're interacting, and they're learning science.
And if you ask them what sound is,
They
They'll
know,
tell you.
yeah,
it's
you can
vibration.
ask any of them and they know what sound is. And then some of the other great things is like, you know, one of the big skills in first grade is creating diagrams and labeling them, writing complete sentences. So as they're exploring sound, they're taking apart music boxes. They're drawing the parts of the music box, trying to explain how they work. They're labeling the pieces of their music box, so they're not only getting the science learning, they're getting some reading and writing in as well.
And it's amazing for that age group to actually be able to, they might call it a thingamabob or the little bumps or whatever, but they can actually go through the steps of what makes things work because we've demonstrated it, shown it, and they can then put it all together.
Yeah, and if you look, you know, you watched the video, you could see in all of the pictures, all of the students were engaged in their learning. And I think one more slide, this is our last slide. This is one of my friends, Julian, his mom is here tonight to talk a little bit about how Mr. K has impacted her and Julian.
Should I stay right here?
Totally
Or whatever you feel comfortable with.
I'm Amy. My son Julian is a first grader in Mrs. Patnon's class. And he's a super smart kid. He struggled behaviorally last year in kindergarten. And one of the, part of the plan heading into first grade was hands-on science enrichment with Mr. K. The hands-on learning that he does with Mr. K has really benefited Julian. The biggest thing is his behavior has taken a complete 180 from last year. He has not struggled this year behaviorally. He loves his time with Mr. K. He gets really excited about the projects they work on. For example, they assembled a small model of the human skull, and I heard a lot about it. Julian was really excited to bring it home and really loved working on it. He's a kid who loves hands-on work. He loves science, building, any kind of STEM-related project that's his thing. So getting that time with Mr. K has been a big motivator for Julian. For example, before he brought his skull home, he had to write out the manual of how he put it together. And so that was a big motivator for him to do that, you know, sitting down and writing work that he doesn't love as much as he does the hands-on stuff. But so it's a big motivator. And then also the time spent outdoors has been really wonderful for him. Being outdoors is good for everyone's mental health. And I think the hands-on learning that he's been doing outside has built confidence and helped build his love for school, for being here.
The one thing that Julian really surprised me with was he looked up at me one time while we were doing the skull and he said, "Mr. K, you know what I really like about learning with you is when we're done I can put my finger on it." So that was great. Yeah, he can touch it and he can work it.
Right.
And I don't want to, it seems like this was a lot about Mr. K, but it's not. I really want to stress that this school district has taken a leap of faith and looked at, instead of focusing on negative behaviors, focusing on positive behaviors and intervening and doing something that is really out of the box. To be able to take the kids outside. I walk down these halls and they're like, "Oh, are you with us today?" Sorry. Oh! So it's like, it's not me, it's that they can go outside, they can experience things, and that's really a lot of fun. So kudos to the board, kudos to the superintendent and the principals, and I've really enjoyed my time doing this, and I hope that at some point it can keep going. So, if there are any questions, I didn't study, but Michelle would be more than happy to answer.
I didn't study either.
So,
And I think the only thing I would add with this, especially with Julian in particular, is that when he was struggling behaviorally, we really came together as a team to say what is going on. And through that work and through an evaluation, we found out he's a very intelligent young man. The traditional model of school isn't actually working for him. And so I know Kosha had Kurt, and we made a plan with Kurt, and actually I think over the summer, in July or August, we met as a group and made this plan, and it's been incredible for Julian.
And is this exclusive just to Highgate? Is there any chance to get throughout the district?
It is, there was a great video, I wonder if it's still on our website, that JR did early on to share with teachers about what Kurt could do in the classroom. Kurt's been working in preschool for a while, in Swanton.
Yep.
You do kindergarten in Swanton as well?
preschool.
Preschool
And
and
preschool here.
preschool here and first grade.
First grade here, and then preschool and kindergarten in Franklin.
Yep. So it's mostly been targeting with our younger kids right now, but, you know, hands-on learning is great at all grade levels, so.
And one other thing I want to share with you, I guess, is that Peacham, I had the opportunity, the librarian there in Peacham had some money, and she got me to come down to the Peacham Elementary School, and from there a relationship developed that I'm now in my 4th year of going down and doing naturalist in residence. I go down 3 times a year for a week and take the kids out. All the grades. It's a small school, so it's capable, I'm capable of doing that. But they do a week in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. And it started with COVID because they had their classrooms outside. And it's been a wonderful experience both for me and for them. And because it's been over time, I've seen those kids go from 1st grade up to 6th when they leave the class, and they talk about all the things that we did do. So it's really good. Thank you.
Well, we're big fans of outdoor education and hands-on nature here. Tanya couldn't be here tonight for her own family, but I know she'd be saying that. And she'd kick me if I didn't say it. So it makes a big difference for our kids. And thank you to Amy for sharing the success with your child. Appreciate that so much.
So if there are no other questions, then thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks, Michelle.
Jen, I just had one question for Joshua, follow-up.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say thanks, Amy.
Oh, no, go for it. Well, it was just to say thank you, by the way. Like, I love that nature presentation, and for what you do, like, that's, I think getting kids outdoors and having them explore is just, it means the world, especially to younger kids, like, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
I would love
Thank
to
you,
do
Michelle.
testing outside. You know, take them to a tree. Yeah, well, no, but I'm just saying, if you take them to a tree and go back to what it's amazing how much, after 4 months of not having done a sound lesson, they'll come to me and say, by the way, and they'll regurgitate what we talked about and expand it further. So, if that could be done at some point in the future, yeah.
You can say bye.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, it was, I just want to know how, those kind of services, is that just offered for like pre-K and 1st grade, like?
We have done it with 6th grade. Kurt did work with the 6th grade group last year, as well as I believe actually a 5th grade group. So we tried a couple of different models of how we use Kurt, but what I'm trying to do in this way is to show the school really the work that he is doing in hopes we get more classrooms that are on board, because he one of the most impressive things that I saw was one day, I actually went with Kurt on his adventure with Julian, and Julian talked for about 45 minutes. He showed me a leaf and taught me way more than I ever knew about a leaf, and he was telling me how if this goes in one direction, it means it's this kind of leaf. And Kurt would just prompt him by saying, grab this and talk to Mr. Pastine about it. It was literally 45 minutes of him just teaching me. And that's just incredible.
And my other question was how often, aside from like a class like that, are like the classrooms getting outside? I mean, because just in general, I've always been curious about that, just because.
Yeah, I don't actually know if I can answer that. So I
Certainly
don't.
recess, and then it's
Right.
up to individual teachers.
But how much
You know.
teaching, I don't think I could answer how often they're getting outside.
But this is something,
Outdoor
I know, that is
I
one
know,
reason why
trying to work on
we're
it.
working toward an outdoor classroom. You know, I mean, for example, Kurt's, we have a contract with Kurt for X number of hours, that's part of our ESSER plan.
Yeah.
And it was
isn't that
part of
report?
the getting students outside and getting kids more engaged and hands-on learning, and it was offered to anybody, you know, depending on how many hours Kurt has, who wants them. And so that went out to all teachers, and he's filled out and with mostly preschool, K, and first grade.
So that was my other question, is with the ARP ESSER funding, because that was in the admin report, does that potentially go away?
You know, this is one of those things that we make decisions about. When the funding goes away, how effective has this been? I think this hands-on learning is an example of something that's been quite effective. But we take a look at that, and then we determine whether this is something we want to put in perhaps our consolidated federal grants instead of our ESSER. But there, you know, we prioritize based on whether we think it's working. This is an example of something I think is working pretty well.
I would agree. Thank you.
Hi, Ty.
I really like the fact that the whole classroom's doing it, not just kids that would benefit from learning the non-traditional way. I think some programs that the district has at the older level, middle school and high school level, it's a choice to do the non-traditional learning, and I think it clumps. You have some negative effects from trying to put all that same kind of kid together. But I really like how Kurt does it with the whole classroom. And I think, yeah, sure, you probably could, the one child with behavioral issues seem to go away, but I would have to guess majority of the children, behavioral got better.
Yeah, I mean, especially for this one class in particular, they are all, Kurt usually invites me when he comes in, and I can't always make it, but this one last time I went, they were doing something with water and how it kind of works in these different containers, and they were talking about how different things looked. I mean, the kids are sitting on the rug just waiting to participate, because he has them all come up for different things. And there's even one student who got a little, and Kurt said, remember, we need to be ready to do this, or I'm not sure you can participate. And I was like, ooh, nope, I'm ready. Just I want in on this. So yeah, he's just very, very engaging. And I think that's really a huge part of it. But and of course he brings stuff you get to experience and play. And one time there was this fire thing he did to talk about smoke and pressure, and it was very cool. But safe.
Yeah.
It was safe.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments?
Good.
Very good. So the next agenda item is to interview with board candidates. We do currently have Kelly here tonight. We do have Tracy coming. She should be here hopefully within the next 10 minutes. So if the board's okay with it, we'll start with Kelly, and then when Tracy gets here, we'll jump over to Tracy. Everybody's okay with it?
Sounds good.
Perfect. I did write a couple of questions down. And then.
Is there a seat at the table over there in the corner that would?
What about right down there next to Peter?
Great. I didn't know if you wanted to just tell the board a little something about yourself before I open up the.
Yeah,
the-
sure.
I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
And then they can ask.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Kelly. I live here in Highgate. I have 2 kids that attend Highgate Elementary. I was born and raised in South Florida. Spent some time in upstate New York before I came over to Vermont. Left upstate New York for Vermont to be a Burlington police officer for several years. I then left law enforcement, well, in a full-time capacity for real estate, which I've been doing for the past 3 years. I still am employed as a police officer for Swanton Police Department as a reserve status, so I go in to just help cover shifts when they need it because they're a smaller department. My husband is a sergeant for Swanton Police Department, so it's just kind of been something I haven't quite been ready to totally let go of yet, and that's just it's a cool thing to be able to tell people about too. It sounds more interesting than just a realtor. And that's pretty much just what takes up my time now.
Okay. So the first question I have is, what interests you to be on the school board?
So I've always planned on taking a bigger role such as this, being involved in the community. As I got older, just have decided that's something I want to do, and thinking that it's important to be involved in roles such as that one. And obviously with my kids being enrolled in the school district too, it just seems relevant to be a part of something that I'm actually a part of as well. So I thought when I actually saw on Seesaw it came out that there was a board opening, and it was just kind of like jumped out at me and spoke to me, but I was just like, maybe this is my thing to maybe it's now.
Thank you. And then my second question is, could you support a board decision you did not vote in favor of, and why or why not?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Could you support a board decision you did not vote in favor of, and then why or why not?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. This definitely will be a role that will be very new to me. But I think ultimately, like, we have these systems for a reason, and we vote in majority of things, and so if the board as a majority votes in something that I'm not in favor of, then that will have to just be something that I support the board with, that we all trust and respect one another, and so if the majority of the board agrees with something, then that's a decision that is to be supported.
And I'm just gonna kind of go around the room actually, so Toby, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. I wait after others go.
Joanne?
Yeah. Skip for now.
Don?
I'm always good for a question, right? One of the things I've noticed with this board, having been on boards for years, that there's a time commitment. We meet twice a month, except I guess maybe in July, that's a very good one. We have committees. You would be part of a committee, hopefully not more than one, but committees. As I've said to people in other instances, if you aren't here, you don't have the value to us. So it would be important. So there is a question in here. The question is, can you make a commitment to come to at least 2 board meetings a month and 1 committee meeting a month, which usually run, Jen, I think is going to get us on 2.5 hours or less, but sometimes it could be 3. So
Yeah.
It's a commitment. If you miss 1 out of every 4 or 5 meetings, you lose the consistency.
Sure. Yeah. So Rennick was kind enough to schedule a phone call with me about a week ago, and kind of filled me in a little bit more on what exactly that time commitment looks like. Because otherwise I don't want to be here and ask for this position if I'm not able to commit to that. So that was helpful in having me understand what that time commitment really looks like. I do think I don't foresee any issues with the time commitment, especially with these being later in the evening anyway. I don't see any conflicts. And the nice part about my job now is the flexibility with my schedule, so I don't foresee any issues with the time commitment piece to it. But I really appreciate everybody making sure that I was aware of that too, so that I know exactly what I'm getting into. Like, Jen's been really helpful, Rennick was really helpful, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Megan?
Thanks. So I was gonna ask about the commitment, the time piece, just because I know that when I first joined, it was a surprise to me.
Sure.
How much of a time commitment it was, so I'm glad to hear that you were able to get that information, but, no, I do wanna say thank you for throwing your name in the ring, and, I think it's wonderful having somebody who's interested who has children currently in the district, it's great, thank you.
Peter. So, you said you have kids in the school,
I do.
so, what grades are they in?
4th and 6th.
4th and 6th, and have they been here right along from 1st grade?
Yes, we homeschooled for 1 year during COVID, but then the following year, we got them enrolled in.
So now pretend Joshua's not here. What's your, feeling on how their education's going?
I think it's gone well. My husband and I certainly have a lot of really nice things to say about Highgate. There's no secret, like there have been times that there have been instances where my husband and I have had to talk with, Mr. Pastina, our teachers. But those are all individual instances, and, that was one of my concerns, or not really concerns, but one of the things that I sure was going to come up was that the instances that we've had to chat with our teachers about things is that very individual instance that I have a different role as a parent in that than a school board member. One of the things that Rennick mentioned, that sometimes when people put into these positions is because they have a bone to pick necessarily, and so I wanted to always make sure that that wasn't ever perceived as my motive for being here. I don't have any bones to pick. I think it's pretty common. I would think maybe that parents have things that they want to talk to their principals and things like that about, but I've always been really impressed with how great Highgate has been about addressing those concerns and things like that. So, whenever, I guess that's all you can really ask for, right? Things are never perfect, but whenever we have had to address things, the entire school was really great about hearing us on those things and trying to fix the problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Yeah, you just say.
Yeah, I'm good.
Always pondering.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Could I chime in a little bit knowing Kelly? Or was I not allowed to? I don't want to do something I'm not allowed to do.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we have had interaction. Kelly's been very supportive. She wants the best for her kids, and always it has been something that she wants to chat about. It's been very reasonable, and so I think she's very collaborative, very communicative, and you've been great to work with as a parent. So
Thank you.
would definitely support. I mean, Kelly has a really good, I think, viewpoint, and sometimes gives us just good feedback of things to work on, and so, yeah, I was excited to see you tonight.
Thank you, I
That's great.
appreciate that.
Do you have any questions of us?
I don't think so. I think really the only thing that I asked Rennick when we spoke was, I know there's a desire that those who serve on the school board are also a part of a committee. And so my question was just, what do those committees look like? Which almost, I think, we kind of answered before with Dawn's question, where I could find more information on that, just because if I was expected to join one of those committees, just seeing what those look like and which ones need help so that I can best help in those. So those were just my questions about what those committees were, what they looked like, which ones were in need of somebody to join those, and just finding out a little more information on those.
Yeah, I guess I do have a question. Are you interested now, I'm sure Jen or Rennick might have filled you in that this is just for till next town meeting day?
Mm-hmm.
So are you interested in running beyond, like, so pretty soon, like in the fall or late fall, winter? And I'm kind of curious why you didn't, when the seat was open, was it just like you didn't know about it, or you were kind of hemming and hawing about it then, or?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I probably just wasn't as aware of those as I probably should have been. It really did just jump out when I saw that there was the opening on Seesaw, and just, going through those as I am updated with the kids, things like that. So when I saw that, it just kind of really stuck out to me when I saw it and kind of got me thinking about it. So that's really what prompted my interest this time around. But yeah, I would be interested in continuing the position.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And I'll definitely be getting back to you, Kelly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pretty much everything else we have, as soon as our other candidate comes in, we
I was just
can-
gonna ask you if we
Yeah.
can stop it
And go right back to that.
give Tracy her
Absolutely.
opportunity.
I know that her child was playing baseball.
I just came from there, so mine just lined up a little bit better.
Excellent. So the next item on the agenda is business items. We got warrants.
So I propose to sign the warrants.
To approve the warrants for the month of March.
To approve the warrants for the month of March. Did I do that right?
In the amount.
And the amount.
In the amount of, sorry, in the amount of $4,700,000, 2,365.00.
You have 5 cents.
5 cents. Should I start that over for the minutes?
Please.
Okay, alright. To approve the warrants for the month of March for $4,700,000 and 2,365.05.
I will second that motion.
Oh, wait first.
Oh, he made.
Were you making a motion or were you?
Yes,
Oh, you're making the motion, okay, sorry. Toby's second. All those in favor?
I got a question.
Oh, sorry, just.
That 4.7 million is higher than, and it seems if I remember this time of year, we had this issue before, or not issue, but is it higher this month?
Yes, 3 payrolls.
3 payrolls, okay. That was one, because it's usually 3.5 or.
Every, I don't know, it's 10 months or whenever it falls, but every once in a while we have that extra payroll in there, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0 approval. Do we want to do the next two, or let Tracy be able to? What would you like to do? Let Tracy have her opportunity to speak or finish these last two?
Let's just finish the last two.
Yeah, they're not long.
Okay, excellent. Financial report information.
Yes, I'll just note a couple of things, I think. So I think maybe earlier, a few months ago, I was probably, I shared information with you with the financial report that the carryover was probably a little bit higher. And there were some questions about maybe potentially trying to have conversations about spending that potential surplus at that time. And I had shared with the board that, you know, this year was difficult in trying to encumber or anticipate certain kinds of expenses, and that has come to fruition. We continue to need to provide services for students in different manners, which we knew. Some of those are ESSER qualifying and some are not, some hit the general fund. I continue to kind of work through that as those situations come up. But that has impacted our overall anticipated surplus for the year. So we are down a few $100,000 from the last version that you saw a couple of months ago, but still comfortable, I would say. On the revenue side, I did just want to note that you will now notice, so on the front page, this revenue page, an ESSER indirect. I spoke about that, I believe, at the last meeting, on how we were going to utilize some ESSER funding, but there's an indirect calculation that we do to make that money just
not as regulated to spend, and so to avoid things like Davis-Bacon rules and things like that. So I have done that, so that 200,000 is now reflected in revenue that was not there before. There's offsetting expense that's flowing through as well for those things that are qualifying as expenses as well. But that's a new revenue on the revenue side. Other than that, on the expense side, again, additional student services that we've needed as late as the end of last week. We had some contract discussions for students. So those just continue to be things that we're keeping an eye on and providing. Other than that, HRA usage, we had to pre-fund our HRA account for our employees again. That's a benefit that we have. We always start off fairly conservative. We monitor that month by month. We just had to make another fairly large deposit into our HRA account, but our usage is actually still on track with other years. It's around the 65% mark. So nothing unusual. I just can't always anticipate exactly where we're going to end up. Hopefully that will be enough funding to get us through the remainder of the year. Other than that, you may note, I just wanted to kind of point out that when you look through this kind of rolled up version of a financial report and you look at the 100 codes, which is your salaries, and then the 200s, which are your benefits, you'll notice that lines don't necessarily line up the way that they usually do. You'll see swings in things like guidance or psych or maybe even nurses or custodial support, and definitely under instruction or special ed. That is because of the staff issues that we've been having, the shifts, the creativity that the administration has had in trying to cover classrooms or cover services, or people going out on long-term subs and things. People were funded with grants and now they're funded with the general fund. So it's the same amount of people. It's not new people, but where they're charged to in the budget has to shift when their duties shift. And so we've had to be a lot more flexible with that. It does definitely make it harder to manage, and Bonnie can definitely speak to that too. But just when you look through there, if you ever have any questions and why what we budgeted is a little bit different than what we are now anticipating, that probably is the reason. But if you ever have a question, just let us know. The only other thing I will say is that the facility task force had approved a capital project, which was additional insulation. It was like a second phase of an insulation project in Franklin to come out of the surplus. It was a small amount, I think 11 or 12,000, and that is now in here as well. But that's basically the only unanticipated capital project that is included in this financial report right now. Again, I will continue to look at ESSER. There have been a lot of shifts. If we can utilize some additional ESSER dollars for qualifying expenses, one I'm looking at right now is additional custodial support, not new custodial support, but funding additional custodians to free up additional money in the budget for the remainder of the year. But I'll continue to do that with our grants manager, Bonnie and Julie. This anticipated carryover, I spoke to Rennick the other day about, and Joanne, just to keep in mind, this is actually what offsets taxes a year from now. And so, we want to be cautious of significant dips from year to year. So definitely any lower than this could have a negative tax impact in a year from now. So we want to be cautious of that.
Was it last year or 2 years ago that the bottom kind of dropped out on money going forward? Because for years we had a big carry forward. And then
we have the last few years because of ESSER, I think a comfortable carryover, a couple $1 million, yeah.
Any other questions? Next item is the trust accounts information.
Okay. So we have a few, Swanton has a few trust accounts or fiduciary accounts that we hold where these were basically gifts given to Swan over the period of the last 20, I think one of them might be 25 years old, where the principal is not allowed to be expended, only the interest. Those were accruing a lot more interest years and years ago than they have the last 10 years. Now interest rates are slightly up. But what I would like to do, typically these have been 1-year CDs or we've kept them in a money market account. Interest rates are high at the moment, so I'd like to pool these together, which would be a cumulative balance of about $27,000. that would allow us to secure an interest rate of 3.92%, so nothing huge, but we would at least accrue more interest rather than the 0.18 or 0.21, and it would be an 18-month term. So I just need board approval to do that and pull those together. It also is cleaner, it's part of our just cleaning up our processes, cleaning up accounts, trying to mainstream things from an administrative perspective also. So this would still be with M&T Bank.
So are you looking for a motion to do that?
Yes. And if we could just name these in the minutes, that would really be helpful, the ones that were going to be pooled. And again, I just wanna make sure to say that the funds will be tracked separately in our financial management software, so we're just pulling them for the purpose of the interest in the CD. We will prorate and the interest and apply it as appropriate also, so the funds don't lose their identity.
How many accounts?
It's the Swanton Stephen M. Hale Memorial, the Swanton Library Trust Fund, and the Swanton Milton and Jesse Tabor Memorial. And we would move them into something called the Swanton Trust Account CD, but they will still remain separate funds in our accounting software.
So they're all Swanton.
So if Jen will entertain the motion, I will make the motion to consolidate the Swanton Stephen Hale Memorial Fund, the Swanton Library Trust Fund, and the Swanton Milton and Jesse Tabor Memorial Fund into the single Swanton Trust account CD.
I'll second that.
Tony's the first, Dawn's the second. All those in favor?
I got a question.
Oh, sorry.
So Laura, you talked about not losing the identity of those, which I think is really important. Is there any way that when it's combined into trust and it's shown somewheres that we can have some kind of a footnote? So I'm just concerned that people that are tied to these funds, when they see that, they don't know what it is, if there can be a footnote or something, just so they can see that that's part of their funds, or part of.
In our accounting software, when if you were to ask me for a report, it would say each one separately.
Okay.
Is that what you mean, or you mean on something else?
I don't know, like when we have the end of year reports and stuff, if this fund shows up, I'd like to.
They will not lose their identity. You actually won't see Swanton Trust account, only on the bank,
Okay.
only on the bank statement will it say that. In every
Okay.
other report that I would ever provide, it would say the separate ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So who spends that money, the principals? The
But there
interest?
hasn't been a lot of money
There
to
hasn't been
spend
much
because when you're getting 25 cents a year for interest,
Isn't that bad, huh?
which is the problem. And sometimes we've been getting fees associated with the accounts, which I'm oftentimes able to get waived, but because there's no activity, so it's getting more difficult. But typically, yes, I would go to the principals and say, there's $500, this is supposed to be for drug awareness, or it's supposed to be for any student center activity, and they would come up with ideas and send it that way out.
I know there was a time, about a decade ago, they were generating sizable.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the Swanton Library Trust is obviously for books, so they work with the libraries.
Is that, didn't we have a Babcock, is that the Babcock one or no?
Yeah.
It just wasn't named the Babcock, I thought it
Well,
was.
I took the names off the bank statements.
Oh,
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
And then I just wanted to mention, you had mentioned that Becky Hart is going to be leaving. She is the second signer on our accounts along with Georgette Roddy and myself, so I have been working with the bank to transition that to Lisa Way. Because the board signed a resolution as MVSD, and I'm a signer on the account, I'm allowed to do that and do that without having to bring 3 different resolutions to you. If I closed or opened a new account, I would have to bring it, but I don't have to change the signers, but I just wanted to make you aware that that's what we were doing, so we would always have a backup.
Thank you, Laura. All right, so we are going to actually go back to number 8, because Tracy's here. So we're going to fire if you want to find, and this is what our agenda has been so far, what will continue to be after for continue to stay with us. would you like to, I'd like to start, you have to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Would you like me to stand or sitting?
Sitting's
Would you like
fine,
to-
this is more comfortable.
So a couple weeks ago, I did mention a few things. I'm Tracy Pilvin. I have been a former school board member on the Missisquoi Valley School Board from 09 to 14. I am a mom of 3, and I'm sorry for my tardiness, but I did have a game tonight, and there were some circumstances I just couldn't leave early. So I apologize for that, but I thank you for the flexibility in the agenda tonight. I'm a 27-year career as an Air Force nurse. I've got a nursing career on the outside as well, going into my 21st year. My reason for coming forward, I've been home for almost 2 years after spending 7 years in Alabama, and I feel like it's just time to get back into my community as the dust has settled a little bit with the move back. I have 2 kids that attend Missisquoi, and then I homeschool my little guy. But I just want to be part of the community. When I served on the board, as I mentioned before, it was an honor and a privilege. I just enjoyed being part of the growth and bringing out what we can for the youth and getting them involved and doing what we can do to make a difference.
So I had 2 questions, you kind of already answered one of them. What interested you in being on the school board, you just answered for us. And my other question is, could you support a board decision you did not vote in favor of, and why it, or why not?
Can you say that again?
So we vote on, and it's not always everybody agreeing
Right.
on it. So my question is, could you support a board decision you did not vote in favor of?
Yeah, so I think one of my strengths is I'm a critical thinker, and I think if I felt like I didn't have enough information to make that vote at the time, I would not be. I could oppose a vote at the time if I didn't feel like I had enough information coming forward, and just request that information before I, could move forward with a vote. Is that what you're asking?
Well, so if we kind of, like, if we made a decision of increasing school lunches $5 a meal, very exaggerated,
Right.
and you didn't agree with it, and we had to, put in place in following future board meetings, how we were gonna roll that out to the schools and the students and the parents and what have you, would you be able to still support that even though you voted against it?
Sorry, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think through life, you gotta be open-minded. You have your opinions, but you can also you can be shaped. Your own opinions can be shaped. So there might be things there that I'm not seeing, even though I may not be for it at one point. I think mine can be shaped a little bit, and I absolutely can move forward with whatever the board had decided at that moment.
Thank you. And then I'm just gonna go around the room, like I did before, to see if any of the board members have questions for you, and Toby.
I don't have any questions for Tracy.
Toby.
Julian.
I don't stand.
Don.
Well, I guess I better ask the same questions I asked before. I think I should, I'm sure you've talked with board members, whether it's, current or in the past, the time commitment. And so my question is, are you prepared to sit around the table with this group probably twice a month? We usually try to keep it to 2 hours, once in a while we go a little more. Julie gave me the high sign when I said 2.5, so. And then you'd be on a committee, and I think probably you could, either one of you would end up on the committee of your choosing. We're full up on facilities, we must have a waiting list of facilities going to but other than that, just to say, I think it's important that the question be asked and that we hear your response.
Yes, sir. That's a great question, because I will be honest, and if anybody knows me in this room, I'm very direct, and I give it like it is. This was one of my reservations of coming back to the board, is the time commitment. So at this point, in sitting here before you, if I wasn't all in, I wouldn't be here. So is there gonna be maybe a time? I'll be honest, that I might have, a game here and there, and I'll work around that, but that's why I'm sitting here, is because I have had discussions with board current board members, and that was one of the things I brought up, that if, when I'm all in, I've gotta be all in. I can't serve on a board or be part of a team if I don't feel like I'm all in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No questions from me?
So you said you have kids in school,
Yes, sir.
so you said they're at MVU.
2 are there.
What grades are they?
I have an 8th grader and a 10th grader.
8th and 10th. And so you moved back, so they haven't been there the whole time?
This is their 2nd year there. So went in the 7th grade and the 9th grade when they came back.
So how was that transition, and what's your impression of MVU?
So for my kids, they spent 7 years in a military school on base. So it's definitely was a culture shock to them a little bit. If you even have a little cuss word in that school, you were, had detention. So I think there were some things that they noticed through the hallways and language that, I'm gonna be honest with your answer, but I love MVU, I always have. I think there's a lot of great things happening at MVU. But there were some things that were a little culture shock to them, but overall, they love the school. And it's interesting, because I'll just kind of play around with them sometimes and say, I might go back active duty, just messing around because I just want to see, and they absolutely love their school. They've settled in, and I think that says a lot for the community there, to have kids that are just in their 2nd year of school and already feel like they're part of the school. I got one going out for the National Honor Society, one's my athletic gal that has settled in with all of her sports. So, yeah, I think it says a lot for the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Everybody's all set.
Toby's not gonna ask these questions?
Come on, Toby.
Nobody's circling around.
I actually know Tracy, so I had a conversation with her, actually at BFA Tech, because our kids are going there. So we chatted a little bit.
I'll ask it just to be fair.
Oh, yeah. I want to know what your question was.
Why,
You'd like me to ask her the same question I, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Wondering why you didn't run in the town meeting last. And do you envision running, because this appointment, if you get it, will be for until town meeting. Would you be interested in running, I guess, would be in next spring?
Yeah. So, very good question. So as same thing with, during that time, I was still on the fence a little bit. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that this was the right timing for me. At first, I was questioning the timing. So that's why the petition didn't go out for the election. I just wanted to make sure that I was all in before I made that commitment. And absolutely, if I'm on the board, I would plan on continuing to serve. If y'all let me.
Anything else? Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for
You're
coming,
welcome. Bye.
and we'll be in touch with you. Alright, so now we're gonna continue on to number 10, approval of the 2023-2026 educational support for personal master agreement. That's for executive session.
So when we get to executive session, we would make a finding that it's appropriate for executive session. Premature public knowledge would put one or more parties at a substantial disadvantage.
Teacher hires.
Absolutely. So we've started the process. I have 2 for you today, and I think when we meet next time, I'll have more. The first is Charles O'Brien, who will be replacing Cindy Rose in Swanton as a guidance counselor. And he is currently finishing his internship in guidance at Orchard School. So we will be issuing him a contract, and then Chloe Echo, who is replacing, I'm trying to think what grade level, she's a newer teacher.
Eileen is first grade.
Eileen is a first grade teacher. So she's replacing Eileen. Chloe is going to be probably in primary. And she is also finishing her teacher practicum right now. And both high quality candidates. We're very excited.
Could you also do one that I had forgot to put on, but I
Oh, also, a return. You just added her to the spreadsheet. Yes.
as you were talking.
Also, I think earlier in the year, you may remember that Jen Gagne left being a school nurse here in Highgate to try being a nurse in the outside of school world. And she has asked if she can come back. So she will be returning to us in the fall.
Did we have a vacancy or did
We do, in another school. So one of the other nurses is going to go to the Swanton Babcock building where there's a vacancy, and Jen will be returning here to Highgate.
Excellent. Thank you.
And so we just need a motion to approve their hire.
I have a question before I make the motion. So,
Sure.
it's just a logistics, because it doesn't say anything about action on there.
Oh.
And it doesn't, and Bonnie just is adding another one to it. Didn't see who the teachers or who the new hires were. I don't know how critical it is that we do it tonight.
Well, you approve them after the contract is issued, so you're approving them retroactively.
Yep.
So I apologize for
I'm just
not having the
as
word action there.
comfortable with it, because it's not really, if somebody outside is reading those minutes, I don't think they would think we're taking action on hiring new teachers, or whatever the positions are.
Have they already been hired? Sounds like they've already been offered.
Once they meet with me, our procedure is that once they meet with me, they're offered a contract, if I approve it. And then the board at their next meeting approves them retroactively. We went with the attorneys to make sure that that was the right way to go about it, and they said, absolutely.
So they have already, like you've offered them the, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I
it's,
thought, just wanted to confirm.
we missed that big debate during the People's House?
Yes, I did.
it was fun.
Just a question, isn't it a procedural question you're asking, which
Yeah.
is if we're going to have an action, that should the action be warned?
It should, and I didn't write the word action on there, it's my fault.
What if we, hypothetically, because we're being asked a question, what if we decided no, we didn't want to hire a specific one? What happens?
Well, if the board specifically, I mean, I would question the board's reason for doing that, since they've gone through a procedure involving interview, reference checks, interview with the superintendent. Because you're talking about labor law, so we had this discussion when we created that
Right.
procedure for this very
But
reason.
that's why I'm bringing it up, is we are taking an action. If it's not an action, if it's just a rubber
Right.
stamp and it's nothing, then that's different. But if we're being asked to make a decision on something, I think that the public should know that. It's just my opinion, we can do whatever we decide, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Do we just revisit the names in 2 weeks?
You certainly can.
Okay, right? Would that like kind of?
Just curious to follow up, this is not saying, but you just bring up something interesting. So we couldn't vote against it if we wanted to?
You could. But then the employees would then have, and it's kind of an odd space to be having this conversation. But we're following legal advice about the best way to do it. Part of the reason why you are approving them retroactively pending following the procedure is that we have to move quickly to hire folks because they go elsewhere. I mean, sometimes it's a matter of hours of, you know, if we can, Bonnie, I guess the only way to say it is Bonnie secures their decision to come to us before I meet with them. And then I determine whether they're appropriate. I mean, you know, I'm trusting the interview process and the reference checks, and we insist on 3 references and watching a lesson if appropriate to the position. All of that stuff happens.
No, absolutely all that stuff is done.
Right, so but, you know, you're sort of asking a legal question that I'm not sure that I'm prepared to answer on camera without a lawyer telling me how to answer it. But I would assume that the people would have some right of action if they were told, of course they're always told it's pending board approval.
Yeah, it was just a procedural thing based on the way that you
Right.
asked it, which was, it just brought up a point, which is, if we're asked to do it, but we don't do it, then it causes other problems. It was just,
Yeah.
it just popped a question in my head that I was curious for, but it could be for a discussion for later.
Sorry, this would just be a thought for next year. When we regroup as possibly a new board, you know, we have new members, we could just quickly revisit what we have had in place for the past 2-3 years. Just quickly, like, in our, in a board meeting, because, sorry, so like this doesn't happen at this time when we're looking to accept names. It's just a thought.
I think you have a good thought, but I don't think we need to wait until then, that we put it on the next agenda.
Oh, okay.
If people are unclear, I have to be careful because I was the one that was against the whole process at the beginning. So I don't want to taint this discussion. I was convinced by the principals that my position, even though legal wasn't necessarily effective.
So again, I think we have 2 different issues. One, we need to do the hires to get through what sounds like this board already agreed upon was the process. And then if it's something that needs to, or people desire to be revisited, it should be added to a future agenda.
So we have a motion.
We don't
have a
We
motion.
don't have, I thought there was a motion.
There's no action on the agenda. Charles was actually accepted at the last board
Oh,
meeting.
good, so
So
we
I
already
just wanted-
approved Charles.
Yeah, so the board already approved Charles at the last meeting, so it was just Chloe and Jen, so.
I am fine with us revisiting the procedure, I think it's really important, but I would also caution the board to change the procedure every year, because then the administrative work changes, and we need to have, that's why we have procedures that, you know, we agree to, so that we can all know what we're going to do from year to year, I think, with something as important as hiring folks. So I think it's a good idea to have it on the, I really apologize, Peter, for not having it, and everyone else for not writing the word action on the agenda, because I should have.
And I wasn't going to the room, I was just,
Yeah.
that was the action part was what I was concerned about.
I don't have the minutes here, maybe somebody commented, but we did this last meeting, right? And was there action on the agenda?
Probably.
I can pull them up, I guess. I remember.
I can pull it up pretty quickly to see. So what would you like to do now?
Let me see if you're gonna pull those up, right? Sure. So you've already offered Chloe and Jen a contract.
Pending board approval. But you also have a procedure in which the board is authorized, the board chair is authorized to sign as soon as they've gone through, so we issue a contract and then the board approves retroactively.
Yeah.
That's your procedure.
Action was on it last time.
Action was on that one.
I mean, the motion is anyway to authorize the board chair to sign the contracts, correct? Or is it to offer employment?
It's to sign the contract.
It's to accept the contracts as signed by the board chair, so Jen's already signed.
Oh, she's already signed them.
Yeah, so in the first business meeting, you authorize her to sign all the
Okay,
contracts.
okay, yeah.
So in the minutes from the last meeting, when you accepted Charles, Julie did recap what our procedure is. And then, so Jen's already signed them at that point, and then you vote to accept the hires.
I'm hearing that perhaps the board wants to do it on the 25th, when it says action. We're not gonna lose the teachers
I don't wanna be a
because-
stickler, but
No.
the whole thing on the trusts wasn't actionable, nor does an action either.
Well, that was
I
one
didn't
information.
necessarily need a motion for that, because again,
Oh.
that same thing, I'm a signer on the account, the resolutions you did originally cover that. You can make action if you want, but I don't need it.
You did it, okay, well, that solves that one.
Okay, so,
For the
Char-
minutes, correct?
so Charles, we already approved
Yes.
last week. So for the next meeting on April 25th, we will have the new teacher hires as an action for Chloe and Jen,
And whoever else.
and whoever else.
Are
Julie
we at
has.
risk of losing anybody by delaying it by 2 weeks?
Because they've been offered contracts.
Yeah, Chloe's already signed her contract too. Jen doesn't have hers yet. Yeah. And everybody hopes that we have a lot more to bring.
So we're all good with that, like 25th action? Thank you. All right, discussion topics, resolution and future board retreat discussion. So, resolution
Well,
first.
that was really, the board wanted to talk about possible topics for resolutions. And if they wanted to do a resolution.
So I got a question on that. I think it's great that I haven't been on a board. The last time we did a resolution was the first board I think I've been on where we did a resolution. So I thought it was great learning experience for me, and great that our board, I think, because it shows that we're on the ball and really interested in what our people in Montpelier do. But I'm kind of curious, and we might not know yet, but did our resolutions translate into any legislation this session? Do we know?
It is being discussed, I don't know any specific bill, but definitely. And you know, the thing is, that had been around, and every few years it'd come back. All we did by going on board, we're saying there's one more school that's concerned about this, in
Yeah.
Franklin County. It's been an issue in Chittenden County, it's been an issue in, I think it's Windsor, or maybe Wyndham.
That was the tech center governance
That's a
resolution,
yes.
We
right?
just had some legislative discussions and testimony around the CTE study that just came out. So there was a study on the governance and the funding. I think, we're past crossover, so I don't know that there will be, well, I expect that there won't be any action this year, because if there's not in time for crossover, no bills have been created. I would expect the second year in the biennium that we'll see proposed legislation coming out of this report. I can send you the report if you don't have it.
Sure.
Make myself,
Yeah,
I thought about it when I saw it.
See, people get excited about governance, but money is the deal breaker in that whole process. You usually can get enough people at the table to say, yeah, the governance is not equally balanced between the sending schools and the tech center. But then it gets rolled into, and we did the same, it gets rolled into the money. And that's where the rub comes with the legislature. But one of these years, it's going to take, and I think Governor Scott has made an attempt at it, but it's going to take a governor to come out and say, in my budget, I'm dedicating X number of $1 million so we can move off this issue of tech center governance. So we keep, somewhat every year a few more come on. The night we presented that, there were people that spoke in favor of it, and a couple that spoke against it, and we worked with the person that spoke against it. He was a tech center director on a school board in another district. That was kind of interesting, but he agreed that it was a good update. I don't know exactly what the rest of the board is thinking. They might do on a resolution, but certainly we have to get on it the next month if we're gonna do one. Toby and I've kicked around one, but I don't know if either one of us are ready to go with it, but.
What does that mean, like decide on one? Like what is that process? But, right, but what does that mean? Resolution topic discussion, like what?
So I'll try to
signing
explain it
your
because
name
I'm
to
kind of new to it, so Don will correct me, but the VSBA is lobbies on behalf of
Yeah.
School Boards Association, school boards. So they're going out to members like us and asking us like what, if we had a wish list, what type of legislation would we like to see? And then that's presented to a board at the VSBA who debates them and picks one or two or three to push and then maybe lobby for. I don't know if I have it correct, but.
He has it right. I was vice chair of the SBA for 3 years, so I was in charge of scheduling all the resolution stuff and distributing it, whatever. And some years we get 2 or 3, and some years we get 10 or 12. But it's basically helps the SBA develop its lobbying plan in the legislature. And sometimes, I mean, last year as a board we didn't talk with people, but I talked to Mel Mansfield because a year or two before when I was on the board, they'd come through with something similar. They were really irked about governance because Essex sends them a bill and they weren't happy. We get a bill from Northwest. I don't think happiness plays into it, but so anyway, but there are resolutions that come up. And sometimes it's on issues like protocol and like that. But a lot of it revolves around funding.
So this resolution topic discussion, this would be us as a board saying, this is a topic we feel is very important that we want you to take up and lobby with them.
We would draft it. We would draft a actual resolution.
We'll send it to the
Yeah,
state,
which
it
is
goes
a
to
little
the
bit more
committee,
formal.
and they can support it or not, but either way, it goes to the annual meeting. A good one now would be, and we're on television and I don't mind saying it, but there's always discussion about your mascot, okay? I don't know how many people here have been talked to and with, and I probably had 8 or 10 people come up to me and say, I hope you guys, gals, but I think that's kind of derogatory, but us as a board, hopefully you aren't stupid enough to fall into that trap of removing Thunderbird. All right? So I don't know, there's legislation, I imagine there's discussion in Montpelier, unintended consequences, but I think it's still in our court, and we can say, we have no interest in removing the Thunderbird from our as our mascot. But maybe the whole mascot legislation. I'm not advocating it, but that would be an example.
Okay, thank you, it's very helpful.
This last year, we did one on career and technical education, asking for a governance study, and then there was another that I'd have to look up from.
That was something that Laura brought to us, and it got resolved. It was on bonding, I think, Laura?
Yes, I brought that to you because it was something that was coming up in the community, and we knew that there were bills being proposed.
Right.
But we just thought it was one of those things that kept being asked by certain community members, and we just thought that legislation to clean up antiquated language would be called for, but I think that that's an example of one that the VSBA board then said, we're not moving that forward because we know that legislation is coming.
Now, the governor apparently had put, the governor had somebody put it in the budget when they finished up, so I don't know how that's working, but it was like kind of a way around bonding. Was it bonding we were talking about?
I'm not sure
I know you came from.
It was about, there's old language in statute that says any town official, board member, et cetera, must be bonded.
Oh,
Yeah,
That
right.
language.
I was gonna say, Laura,
So
why-
it wasn't
why-
about
why is-
that kind of bonding. It was about you all being bonded, and we instead, they changed the language to say, or
Insurance.
appropriate liability insurance.
So,
So.
anyway, that's an example.
But if there are any topics that you think the legislator might have interest, or other school boards may have interest, you know, statewide teacher contract is one that comes up every once in a while, or, you know, I can't think of another one, that one just pops
I
into my
think,
head.
I think one might be coming out of Burlington on, is it PCBs, is that the?
Yeah.
About the right thing, if you're gonna do PCB remediation, let this be a state expense, not a local expense.
I like the sound of that one.
Yeah.
So-
Or I just saw, if you read the Messenger, Emerson just had an editorial on it, how the Vermont standard is like 1,000 times for PCBs, 1,000 times over the EPA, federal government. So, you know, that could be a resolution to, but, I mean, that cuts across more than just education.
Oh, yeah,
But-
municipal bill.
Right, yeah.
That's never end.
But, anyway, it's kind of,
So does anybody have an interest in a specific resolution they'd like to? Don, you said within the next, by the end of next month, we should have it.
I believe the deadline's in June.
It is.
I know when I was on the committee, we met in July to bring it forward for the annual meeting.
The submission deadline is June.
we just got an email from the VSBA on it, too, a reminder.
I read it and didn't even look at the date because I don't do it anymore.
Are there any that Laura would suggest?
I don't think there's the ones that I can think about, like universal meals, we already got the article language change, universal meals is going, no matter, a resolution's not going to stop that. I can't really,
We got the budget changed without having, there might have been resolutions on the past, but for town meeting, the article language was changed.
there's a lot of stuff with Act 127 and things, but I'll probably think of something when I leave here.
Well, if you do, we can certainly, if people send me or Jen any topics, you know, I can, the language they want you to use, there's lots of whereases, you know, in the.
We could put in a resolution that we believe that money for agriculture and high schools funding should be quadrupled. See what that would bring about. I think we're the only high school that does that, a little self-serving, but.
We're the only comprehensive high school. We'd say, yeah, fully fund all comprehensive high school.
Or capital projects.
Well, yeah, capital projects is one, you know, that they have a plan, but they don't have money. But they know that they know that they need to figure it out.
When they saw the number, they all passed out.
You know, we're all going through assessments and then other assessments, and then they will figure out some sort of process where they will prioritize the kinds of repairs and capital projects that happen in Vermont, because they know they don't have enough funds for all of the capital projects that all schools need. But, you know, that might be one to think about, is aggressive funding or rigorous, I don't know what the adjective is, for capital planning in Vermont.
Do we do one that the state pays for transportation costs above a certain amount?
Actually, that's not a bad one, because that's an inequity issue, big time. There's a lot of school districts that don't have the same transportation costs.
Well, we get $600,000 reimbursement for our transportation costs.
We get, but how much is
do we
that?
spend?
Yeah.
Oh, a couple million. Yeah.
Right.
But it is based on a calculation per student. So there, I mean, I'm not saying it covers all of
So
it,
you
but
think
it's definitely.
you think that it's a wash then, that like a high school, say, down the road 15 miles that doesn't bus their students at all, can they put that money towards something else, right?
It's just offsetting revenue that comes off the top of our ed spending for everyone. I think it would be difficult to quantify because transportation costs vary so much across the state with depending on not only logistics and just distance, but also transportation providers. Burlington has a much different take on transportation, and some of these they're much more focused on green energy, and they want, electric buses and things like that, so they've made investments in those that cost money. We haven't done that yet. So there's lots of things. It'd be it's an interesting thing to look at, but it's not as simple as just looking at the cost versus the reimbursement rate.
I'm just looking at it as more like if some school districts have to budget for transportation and some school districts don't.
But we don't have to, it's a choice, yeah.
Right, but, right, which is.
Well, that school
It is
district
legally a
budgets for
choice,
transportation, but one of their schools does not provide transportation.
Right.
Kids just won't come to school.
I just think it's an interesting issue because I think that some schools are, I guess you could say, well, they're choosing that, but.
Lauren, doesn't mileage play into that?
I think it's a student count. I'd have to get the exact calculation, but we definitely provide enrollment information that comes from the census that we do, and yeah. Just, I don't know the math myself off the top of my head.
We probably have till next meeting if we want to do any, so a couple weeks for everyone to think about it.
Yep. Write a list, submit the lists, and put it on next meeting.
Toby brought up the point earlier about the language that got changed on the article, and that was like the last second thing that they did. I don't remember, was that a permanent language change or was it just for this year?
It is already in the law, from Act 127, that it would be changing, there's a moratorium, it's not permanent. Because during the transition of the per pupil weighting counts, there will be huge shifts. Schools with huge populations that are wealthier towns may see that they're getting less equalized pupil count.
Okay.
Where Winooski's a great example, really small school, they will have a much larger equalized pupil count than they have historically, which will change the tax capacity of different communities. So during that transition, it's not happening all at once, they're doing it a little bit each year.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so that is a moratorium. We do not know whether that language will come back. Sometimes when things, just like school construction aid was supposed to be a temporary pause. And 15 years later, we still don't have it, so we don't know.
It was fiscal year 25 to 29, they expanded it to cover fiscal year 24 also, so in fiscal year 20, which just creates not 20, fiscal year 30.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Never said that out loud yet.
Fiscal year 30.
Alright, so we'll finish wrapping that discussion up. People can come up with some ideas for our next meeting on the 25th of April. Great. Future board retreat discussion is on the agenda. When are we having that?
Well,
June or
typically
July?
we have a retreat in July. I mean, we were going to do 3 times this year, we did it twice. But then Phil Gore left to go to Idaho suddenly. They have hired a new director for professional development with the Vermont School Board Association. I don't know who that person is. I know she will be starting in June or July 1. That's as much as I know. It hasn't been formally announced yet, but I understand the person who's taking the position. So it may be, if somebody's starting July 1, having someone at the Vermont School Board Association for July 11th, plan the retreat might be too tight. One of the things that this board had talked about before is doing some strategic planning and having somebody talk with the board about what that looks like and what would your desire be around that. That's a possibility, and that, we could look, if the board so wishes, we could look for folks out there that can do that with school
I
boards.
think we should explore, I know the name, former school board member, I believe, in some southern Vermont school district, is a new person, can't think of her name right now. So I would dare say that would be like one of us going to Enosburg and all of that strategic planning. I don't think we want to go that route right now with the SBA. I'm sure the person is going to be really great in the job, but if they've been there a year or two or had experience like Phil Gore, that's one thing. But if you haven't done that, I think it's a little bit of a challenge where we are, because I think we started moving in a very good direction.
That was going to be the end goal with Phil, is really kind of talk about what we've done so far and what our goals have been and what the activities and the work that the district has been engaged in for the past 5 years. And then from that, start talking, narrowing it down to goal areas, and then talk about what a formal process would look like, and then maybe do that next year. Usually these things take a while to do. And you engage lots of stakeholders around it. So if the board is interested, I could look into different.
Does our attorney have anybody in that office that deals with, issues in general beyond just law? I know some law offices are deeper than just actual attorneys.
In terms of board development, or?
Maybe to just have a discussion about various legal issues that come up that we deal with. We had a student suspension this year for bringing a gun to school. Is it a gun?
Well, we probably shouldn't talk about it in open session. But we could look into that if the board is interested in a training about legal issues for school boards.
I'm not saying we should. It'd be really great to build on what we've been doing.
I'd like to see if we could further on what Phil Didrius, and I don't know, my own personal opinion, is do we really need to have somebody like Phil at our July meeting?
Maybe he'll fly back here. Maybe we can fly back.
Can we, do what we did when we had Chris Shepherd?
We went to the Abbey.
And we were all just like, it's all written on paper, not necessarily putting out a survey prior, but.
Oh, we're doing the Windjammer this year, though.
I'm waiting for Remick and Jen to step forward. That was the plan.
So I will just put out there, I think that the one thing is, we don't have to go this year, it'd be great if we did, but I think the retreats are important for strategic planning and for just an opportunity for us to get together. We had the board goals from last year, going over those, just talking. I think that more than one should happen throughout a year as well. I think there's something that we should, whether it's quarterly or 3 times a year, it doesn't always have to be such a heavy lift. It could be weekend morning or something where we just get together, we say, let's look over the plan that we have, whatever it is, whatever doesn't violate any open meeting laws, and then we discuss it. There's enough people with enough good experience here that we can revisit our plans and come back to them and just make sure we're all kind of on the same page, really. So maybe some sort of a plan for projecting that throughout the year and then see how that lines up with people's schedules. We can work on that.
Jen, I would suggest that maybe Julie call Sue C. I call her Sue C. because I can't say Siglowski. But anyway, she, is a longtime school board member, an attorney, and did a lot of work with school districts. And when I say attorney, not because I want legal issues, but she's helped school districts. She might say, and the woman that was there before, Bill's is still around, Susan Holman, and they might just put something together for a board if we felt we want to build on what he did. They might like to get out of the office and do something like that.
It sounds like there are two different approaches to the retreat, so I feel like that needs to be discussed also, is what sort of retreat are we looking at? There seems to be a very formal process where an expert, for lack of a better word, comes in and I don't even know what guides us through things, and then there's more of an informal where it's, as a board, we're discussing what our goals are and what, I guess, our feelings on how we did meeting the goals that were set forth previously.
Which we've done both.
Good job. Good job.
Well, I would just suggest that for the July meeting, we do the review of our own goals and more open discussion, because it's pretty quick. But at that meeting, we could discuss, do we want to do a formal strategic plan process next year, in the year after? Like, is that something the board would like to engage in? Because I think, that's where you formalize your goals over, say, a 5-year period, in more than just 3 areas. Usually it's like 5 areas, So that's something, the board talks about lots of things that sound like strategic planning to me. And, you may want to engage in that later, but that's not something you just whip together for 2 months. So we can easily do the other kind, which we've done before. Yeah.
So is this where we want to have the discussion about what sort we want to have, or are we saying we will have more of an informal one for July, and that's where we're going to determine?
I think it's more of a discussion of, what the board members would want. Informal in July, and from there as to what we want to do, how many we want to have a year, do we want to go forward with the formal, with strategic planning,
Right.
and so forth and so on. For July, what the board would like to do.
But that meeting in July, we're gonna wanna come out with our goals, right? So the administration, everybody knows where we're headed, where we wanna, and then we can massage those goals as we go. But I know what we've been trying to do in the last couple of years since we started this is every agenda is moving towards our goals. Right, we have things on, that's why we have like tonight, because obviously improving scores with our, improving education. So that's why we had that meeting tonight, and every school that we've been going to have been presenting what they've been doing to try to increase educational scores. So, that's been our goal, our main goal. So I think we have to look at that again. Are we going the right direction? Do we want to do we want to change the way we're going? I think that's what we need to get out of that.
So that more informal.
Yeah.
With taking what we set for goals, and then you take each specific goal and branch off from it of, did we succeed in doing it? Or are we, still going steady with proceeding on going, get it accomplished and.
We'll look at data in our 3 main goal areas. The board may want to do an assessment of their own performance together, which is another piece that the board had discussed doing at least once a year, and go from there. And this was just to sort of start the discussion. We'll probably come back, we'll come back with updates on where we are, what we're thinking for the discussion, until we're getting down to the nitty-gritty and planning it all.
So I would just put out there, it's just an open suggestion. So July, it's, a little less than 4 months away, and I don't feel like that's enough time to do everything in just one session, go in and come out. I would say if people are willing to make us like a smaller retreat, it could be a breakfast or a coffee, and we go over some of these things maybe at some point like in May or June, and get a rough idea of what we want to do, and then we can actually walk into July maybe a bit more prepared. But that's just an open suggestion.
I think in the past, when we planned our own retreats, a small group of board members, 2 or 3 board members and administration met to plan it together and have those kind of conversations.
So planning to planning.
Plan to plan.
Got it.
So just a thought, like maybe if there was one person from each committee, the first plan for the retreat plan, to just talk over, where things are headed, some of the things that should probably be brought up, at the retreat.
Or you could volunteer, Joanne, to be a part of it.
Dawn says I'm maxed out. I can't volunteer.
Have our committees been meeting? Is your committee been?
No,
Not
we
yet.
have not met. But we're not as established, I don't wanna speak for other committees, but like you and Peter
Facilities.
have been, or, you guys have a solid year or more under your belt. These are kind of 2 new committees that
So
you just.
somewhere, is there a printout on now? I know we still have to add a new member, and then we'll know who everybody is on the committee.
Yeah, whoever the board decides, I will reach out to share what the various committees are and
Then we can go back to the list we had last time and say these are the committees. Only have 5 now, Julie? 5 committees, 6?
we have policy, we have the student success committee, we have facilities, we have finance.
Only 4?
Well, we also have negotiations and negotiations here, and we have.
Oh, executive committee.
ACT isn't really a committee, it's just a thing we like to do on our free time right now.
It's not a committee of the board.
It's not a committee of the board.
It's a committee, but it's not authorized by the
Right.
board.
Correct.
We're just instigators.
And the executive committee, that wasn't formed, it doesn't sound like that was formed.
So, that's good. Get those committees going. I'm glad Julie's sitting in the superintendent's chair.
So do we want to put this on for the next board meeting as well? Just like every week, take a 10-minute discussion or something? I think we should, as to what we're going to be having for the.
Good point, John.
I think we're struggling right now because I think we lost a good ESBA person who was very helpful to us. And it would have been great to be able to continue. But that's how things happen, so, yeah.
You were on the first retreat.
I was
board
on it,
goals.
I don't think, no, I don't think so.
That was when Mike DeWeese came. when we
No,
created
sorry,
it.
the second one, the Abbey, the in-person.
Oh, I went to it, yeah, but I wasn't.
But I thought you were with Devin and I, creating the options for board goals.
It was Terry.
Terry was with me.
Okay, I'm wrong.
No, that's fine.
We're all over the place now.
Yep.
Alright, so next is future agenda items. Legislative updates, facility committee updates, retention, and this is just suggestions.
These are things we have planned for the next couple meetings. Yep.
And then the additions of the ones that we spoke of tonight.
I do have a question about the committees, and I know I missed the start of the last meeting, so my apologies. But can I get a better understanding of what it means? Like, have we met? I know that I'm on it, but I don't know what that means.
No, I have
or
to-
who's leading it, or I just don't wanna drop the ball on
I have to
something.
schedule with the 2 of you that have signed up to be on the student success committee, a time when you want to get together and we can talk about how often we meet. And then I will arrange with administrative and we'll go from there.
Okay, awesome.
It's been a couple weeks, but I haven't done it yet.
That's fine, I just wanna make sure that I
You didn't miss a thing.
did not do something that was
That one's
expected.
probably gonna meet every week.
Bring it.
Only
It
every
means
other
our
one.
students will do better.
That's worth it, right?
Yeah.
I agree with
There's an office at MVU for that committee. Just go on there.
I'm gonna move in.
Sure, super excited.
Future, our next board meeting will be April 25th here at Highgate Library at 6 o'clock. And,
Jen, can we talk a little bit about that? That was a nice letter that you sent out on the 25th, right? Was it you? On the 25th, we're gonna have a portrait of a,
Well, that was me.
that was you. Oh, I thought it said Jen on the bottom. Okay.
It's not on the 25th. It was Jen Chevalier, Jen Disorder.
Oh, okay, Jen Disorder.
Right.
I had the wrong Jen.
It's gonna be in May.
What's gonna be in May?
April 21st, there's a community luncheon. It's a half day for students. And then we're working with the Great Schools Partnership to look at our portrait of a graduate and talk about what that translates into for middle level learners. Change the language so that it's more developmentally appropriate, which then teachers will use to perhaps change
All right,
instruction.
Okay, so it's April 21st.
April
So it's not
21st.
gonna be connected with that board meeting.
There will be one in May that will be an evening opportunity, and I think we will do it before the school board meeting.
Oh, okay.
So it will probably be the second meeting in May that we will do that. So that hopefully board members are available to do one or the other, and community members as well.
Because when I read that, and tonight, it's like, that is kind of a focus that brings all this stuff together, right?
That's what we try to do.
Good, thank you.
So that might be a topic for a retreat, as far as, we're gonna be finalizing some stuff with that, correct, or no?
Oh, you finalized the
Yeah.
portrait of a graduate,
So,
but yeah.
we could sell it better, because I have had a couple people ask me about that meeting, they're very interested in it, that upcoming meeting.
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad people are talking to you.
Yeah.
I can send them to you, like,
yeah,
call Toby.
so it might be a topic
Necessary call.
for the retreat, on how to sell that, cause I do think people are interested in it.
Especially this time of year with a whole slew of us getting ready to send our kids off to middle school.
It's a great
We're an
time.
opinionated group.
But that's good.
It's good, get involved.
I am.
She's here.
You know what? More kids are successful if their parents involved than if they aren't, so it's good.
My kids are gonna be busy.
Absolutely.
Kids will be calling their grandmothers.
They already are.
Alright, so next I'm gonna ask if someone would like to make a motion to go into executive session.
For the purpose of board deliberation on the school board seat appointment and possible approval of the 2023 to 2026 educational support staff personnel agreement.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Megan. Second. Gregson, seconded. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. No, yeah, Megan and Reddick.
Did we need to invite people in?
Oh, yes, I'd like to invite in Bonnie and Julie.
Laura's like,
I dodged one.
That's the first one, I knew she's already packing up. Secondly, these two.
no, this
we
is
need
perfectly
Bonnie and
fine.
Julie.